Ladies and gents, my name is Xander, aka Deislayers, and in this video, we're going to go ahead and discuss and review this brand new dead orbit hand cannon, and it's called the Agamid. As I'm sure that many of you are already aware, this is the very first week that the Warmind DLC has been out, especially with Faction Rally, and because of that, we have some brand new weapons from Dead Orbit, New Monarchy, as well as Future War Cult, and of all the new weapons that intrigue me the most, this is by all means my #1 pick. But the main primary reason as to why I'm so excited about this Agamid is because it's got some very unique perks to increase the weapon's overall time to kill, and on top of that, it's got some other great unique intrinsic stats that look to be absolutely incredible, and so I couldn't wait to get my hands on this Agamid hand cannon. Now, if you guys want to get your hands on this ASAP, then the best way to do so is to, of course, pledge to Dead Orbit and reach rank 30, because as soon as you do so, then you have the chance to get this Agamid and then automatically buy this thing and take it directly into the crucible, which is exactly what we're going to do right now. The only thing left to do is to eviscerate that subscribe button, and let's jump right into the video. The very first thing that I wanted to discuss about this Agamid hand cannon is the weapon's overall time to kill. And the first thing that you gotta know about this is that it's got a rate of fire and 110 rounds per minute, which then also means that it's then going to do 71 points of damage in the head and 47 points of damage in the body. This particular hand cannon is classified to be in the very highest impact with the lowest rate of fire hand cannon, but at the exact same time, if you get 3 critical headshots, then this thing is then going to have an optimal headshot time to kill at 1.09 seconds, and that's very, very competitive with other weapons in this game. Now the downside to this is the weapon's overall body shot time to kill, and if you get 5 body shots, then the body shot time to kill on this thing is 2.18 seconds, and that, my friends, is a horrendous number. As always, I like to go ahead and average these two things together by taking 1.09 and then 2.18 and divide it by 2, which will then give us an overall average time to kill at 1.64 seconds, and that within itself, well, it's not that great, but it's not terrible, and it's somewhere right in between. The main thing that I want you guys to take away from this overall time to kill stats is that this thing is the definition of a double-edged sword, because you have got to get those critical headshots if you want to be able to compete with other weapons in this game. If you get body shots, then the time to kill goes up drastically, and in that regard, this thing is complete muff cabbage trash, so I would highly recommend that you guys practice with this thing in order for you guys to get that optimal headshot time to kill and be very, very competitive. Now the wonderful thing about this particular hand cannon is that it's got a very fantastic and incredible perk, and that one perk is called Rampage. And Rampage states that kills with this weapon temporarily grant increased damage, and it can stack up to exactly 3 times. Essentially what this means is that this one perk right here is then going to be able to allow the weapon to increase the weapon's overall time to kill, and that includes headshots as well as body shots, and then a combination of the two. Surprisingly, I was actually able to get Rampage to proc once on a very frequent basis, and this allowed me to get a tremendous amount of double kills as well as cleanup kills, and so with Rampage proc once, you're then going to get 78 points of damage in the head and then 52 points of damage in the body. With 78 points of damage in the head, you guys can really see as to why this thing is the definition of a cleanup weapon as well as a double-edged sword, because that kind of damage from one bullet is truly a staggering amount, and when you get team shots incorporated within this thing is very, very powerful. Now if we were to then go ahead and associate these two things with an optimal headshot time to kill and a body shot time to kill, the optimal headshot time to kill on this weapon when Rampage is procced once is 1.09 seconds, but in this case, it takes 2 critical headshots and 1 body shot to achieve this result. Looking at body shots and body shots only, the time to kill then goes down drastically to 1.64 seconds, and it is then going to take 4 body shots to do so. Taking an average of these two things together by taking 1.09 and 1.64 and dividing by 2, the overall average time to kill on this weapon is 1.36 seconds, and that is a very, very competitive weapon regardless of whether or not you're getting headshots or body shots. Now that you guys know the information about Rampage proccing once, the next thing that we got to discuss is the information in regards to Rampage proccing twice. And though I will admit that you're not going to have this happen that often, but when it does happen, man, does this thing become an absolute monstrosity and a beast that is something that I can guarantee is going to hit like a freaking bulldozer. As soon as you guys happen to get Rampage to proc twice, this thing is then doing 86 points of damage in the head and 57 points of damage in the body. Associating these two things to an optimal headshot time to kill and a body shot time to kill, it's actually the exact same thing as having Rampage procced once, and the exact same thing can also be said for the overall average time to kill at 1.36 seconds. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well Xander, what's the point of even having this thing gain Rampage to proc twice? And my answer to that is that this thing is designed for ducking in on a cover to do a very high damage output in a very short amount of time. With Rampage proccing twice, that's exactly what you're going to get. And so the next thing that I want to cover is actually looking at all three of these time to kills, with having Rampage proc once, with having Rampage proc twice, and then of course the base damage output, that you guys can see the overall comparison between one and the next. As you guys can see right there, the optimal headshot time to kill is at 1.09 seconds for the weapon's base damage output when Rampage is procced once and when Rampage is procced twice, and so in this regard, it's the exact same thing across the board. The key difference though is that in the weapon's optimal headshot time to kill is the number of critical headshots and number of body shots that you can get in order to achieve this difference. With Rampage procced once, you only need 2 critical headshots and 1 body shot, whereas with Rampage procced twice, you need 1 critical headshot and then 2 body shots. However, what I also want to state is that if a Guardian has very low resilience, then when Rampage is procced once, you can actually have 1 critical headshot and 2 body shots, and so in this regard, you can actually have the exact same overall circumstances that you do with Rampage procced once as you do with Rampage procced twice. With all this information, you guys now have a very solid and key understanding of how the weapon functions when it's just got the base overall damage, as well as when you have Rampage procced once and Rampage procced twice. But the next thing that we've got to discuss is the weapon's overall base stats. And the things that I really want you guys to pay attention to here is the weapon's range, its stability, its aim assistance, and its recoil direction, as those 4 stats right there determine the weapon's overall shot rhythm as well as how much damage fall off that you can have. And in this regard, the weapon has a few pros and cons. As you guys can see once again, the weapon's overall range is at 60, which is absolutely spectacular and superb, but its stability and aim assistance are fairly low at 31 and 43 respectively, whereas the weapon's recoil direction is astounding at 100 out of 100. The wonderful thing about this is that the weapon's range is truly fantastic, and what it allows you to do is almost have that exact same overall damage output at many ranges on many different types of maps. And in this sense, this is why I say that this thing is a fantastic cleanup weapon, because even if your teammates get a little bit of damage here and there, this weapon's overall damage output can still be very high, even at cross-map distances, and you can get that damage output almost instantaneously, and it's going to be very high, allowing you to get those awesome cleanups. The next thing that is truly superb is the weapon's overall recoil pattern at 100 out of 100. And the reason why this is so great is because this essentially means that the weapon's recoil pattern is only vertical and there is no lateral side-to-side movement at all, which ultimately means that you're going to be able to land a lot more headshots and a lot more body shots because that shot rhythm is much more predictable and you're not going to have to worry about as much flinch from other types of weapons that are hitting you while you're trying to shoot enemy guardians too. The downside to this weapon's base stats is its stability factor, its aim assistance at 31 and 43 respectively, which means that you're going to have to really get the hang of this thing and practice with it a lot if you want to be able to land those critical headshots and still get the optimal headshot time to kill. In addition to this, the weapon's reload speed is absolutely horrendous at only 38, as well as the weapon's magazine size at only 8. For most hand cannons, especially the ones in this archetype at a rate of fire of 110 rounds per minute, you would normally see a magazine size at around 10 or possibly even 11, but in this case, the weapon only has a magazine size of 8. And so in this regard, I would highly recommend that you guys have a masterwork on this thing that increases the magazine size to 9, and that's because what that's going to allow you to do is to then proc Rampage more frequently, and it's also going to allow you to have more bullets to damage more guardians without ever having to reload. The reason why I'm not too worried about the weapon's overall reload stat, which is only at 38 out of 100, is because this thing also has a fantastic perk that you can have on this to increase the weapon's overall reload speed, and that perk is called Alloy Magazine. Alloy Magazine states that this weapon has a faster reload when the magazine is empty, but you can also have the other option of having on armor-piercing rounds, and armor-piercing round states that bullets fired from this weapon cause extra damage to shields and over-penetrate targets, giving a slight boost in range. Of these two perks, it really just depends on which ones that you guys want to use the most often, but the one that I found to be the most beneficial is having on Alloy Magazine, and that's because you're going to burn through this weapon's magazine bullets very quick, and essentially what that's going to mean is that you're going to have a very slow reload stat, and so in order to compensate for that, you then have Alloy Magazine, which you're then going to proc very frequently because all the bullets are going so fast that you barely even recognize that they're gone, and thus you're going to proc it on a very frequent basis. The very next thing that you guys can choose from on this weapon is a sight, and the sight you can either choose to have on a steady hand, crossfire, or hitmark HCS, and they all do very, very different things. As you guys can see right there, these are the weapon sights and they do exactly what all of them say. But if you were to ask me exactly which one that I would use, I would highly recommend that you guys use hitmark HCS, and that's because that's going to increase the weapon's overall range without a decrease in any other base stat. If you wanted to, you could certainly use on the crossfire as well as the steady hand, as those things are also very, very powerful, but just keep in mind that with steady hand as well as crossfire, you're going to get a significant decrease in the weapon's overall stability as well as the weapon's handling, and with the weapon's very, very low base stats of stability and handling already, that is not the ideal choice. And so what I would once again recommend is using that hitmark HCS, as that's definitely going to increase the weapon's overall accuracy as well as the weapon's range, and of course have no decrease in any other base stat. The very last part that we have got to discuss on this Agamid hand cannon is that this thing is classified as an aggressive frame archetype weapon, and essentially what that states is that this weapon has high damage with high recoil. But what a lot of Guardians don't know about this particular perk is that because it's an aggressive frame archetype, this thing then has the intrinsic perk of high caliber rounds, and high caliber rounds is not only going to flinch enemy Guardians, but at the exact same time, it's also going to give you an increase in range, and for these two factors, it makes the weapon very, very unique and also very powerful in conjunction with Rampage as well as the weapon's other perks. All in all, if I had to say whether or not this weapon was good, bad, or neither, I would say that it's slightly north of neither, but it's not quite up to the level of good. And the reason why I say this is because the weapon is still classified as a double-edged sword, and it's because you've got to hit those critical headshots if you want to be able to compete, and if you don't do that, then this thing is complete absolute garbage, and so you've got to make sure that you're landing your shots in order to make this thing competitive. In correlation with this thing also has the potential to be an absolute wrecking ball and a cleanup monstrosity, just because of the very simple fact that it's already got very high damage output, but when you combine that with Rampage stacking once and possibly even twice, this thing is truly going to absolutely map Guardians and easily get that overall cleanup, no problem whatsoever. When I say that this thing is in my top 5 hand cannons, maybe, maybe not. It's very, very close on that cusp of making that 5th place. It might make 6th or 7th, but just keep in mind that with all this information, you guys have got to make that assessment for yourself. And so I'm very, very intrigued to hear all your thoughts, and whether or not you guys like this or you don't, you agree with my assessment or you hate it, as you can guarantee that I'm going to read all those comments down below, and I can't wait to hear exactly what you guys got to say. Lastly, go ahead and check out some of my other new videos, as you guys can see right there on the screen. If you happen to enjoy this one, then you're definitely going to enjoy those as well. That's pretty much all I've got for you as of right now, and so as always, Deislayers, great gaming, until next time.